thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction. My name is Adrian Hon. I run a games company called Six to Start, based in London. And for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been focused on making fitness games, games that help you get healthy and games that help you get fit. When you think about video games, you think about imagination, you think about excitement, you think about fun. But normally when you're playing a video game, you're sitting down on a sofa, with your controller and you're just watching TV. You're not really moving. I mean, your thumbs are moving, but your body's not moving. You're probably not getting that fit. And the same is true with smartphones. But the sort of games that we make at Six to Start are games that are meant to get your heart racing, they're meant to get you moving. And so some of them are games that you play at home. This is a screenshot from a game we made called Superhero Workout, where we use tablets or smartphones, and we use a front-facing camera of the phone to track your motion and to track your reps, a bit like Kinect, but cheaper. This is the game we made a bit more recently called Step by Step, which is a pedometer game. So we track your steps as you walk throughout the day, and by walking more, you can use those steps to go and buy companions who kind of multiply the number of steps you get. And so you go and travel around the world with animal companions, walking more and more. But our most successful game is a game called Zombies Run, which maybe some of you have heard about. This is a running game. And in Zombies Run, you have your phone, and you put it in your pocket or on your arm, and you've got your headphones in, and we use the GPS or the accelerometer in the phone to track how fast and how far you're running, and you are put into this kind of post-apocalyptic world where you have to run to escape the zombies. So, you're not on your sofa, you're not in your chair, you are actually running in the real world or on a treadmill. And it sounds like a bit of a strange game, but we sold over 1 million copies, and at the moment there's almost 2 million people who play Zombies Run. So it's a pretty popular game. It helps people get fit. So we're very happy about that. And the weird thing about fitness, though, is that for a lot of people, certainly for me, when I was younger, getting fit didn't sound like fun. It sounded boring, it sounded hard, it sounded pretty painful. And the weird thing is, because I used to study physiology and biology at university, I know that getting fit is actually one of the easiest things you can do. From a physiological perspective, all you need to do is to just go and stress your muscles over and over again at bigger weights. So if you want to go and get stronger arms, you do lots of push-ups. If you want to run faster, you just run more. And over the course of days or weeks or months or years, if you just keep on doing push-ups, if you keep on doing pull-ups, if you keep on running, then you will get stronger. And it barely requires any thought. That's all you have to do. But that's exactly why it's so boring. Because if it doesn't require any thought, then it's just boring to kind of focus on. And if you keep on increasing the weight, it gets really painful. And if we go back like 100 years or 200 years or 300 years, no one really worried about getting fit. It was just something that we would have done every day. Most of us in this room would have worked on a farm or in a factory or in some kind of manual labor. We would have walked for hours a day. And doing that would have just made us fit. We wouldn't have to do anything special. Just by living, we would have been fit. But today, you don't need to be fit for anything. You don't need to be fit to get around because you have a car or you have a bus. You don't need to have strong legs or strong backs, to work on a farm, because most of our work is sitting down in front of a computer just typing. So the weird thing is, though, even though we don't need to be fit, we still think it's important, and we still spend a lot of time and money on getting fit. And I think a big part of the reason for that, for some people, or maybe even for most people, is that we've confused fitness with shape. We think that being fit is about losing weight and about being thin and attractive. And that's obviously very important to a lot of people, how you look and how thin you are. But that's actually got nothing to do with fitness. You can be really thin and really light, but you can be really unfit. Or you can be fat and you can still run a marathon. And those are two different things. Instead, fitness, and this is something that's really important for me as a game designer, fitness is about abilities. If you can run 5 kilometers, then you're fit. If you can swim 1 kilometer, then you're fit. If you can cycle for 30 kilometers, then you're fit. Doesn't matter what shape you are, as long as you can do those things. So fitness means being in good health. And even more importantly, being able to swim or cycle or run or row, that's not just about being fit. It's about having a joyful experience. If you're good at running, it's actually fun, I discovered, to actually run. And they're special experiences you can only have when you are fit. And the fact that you become healthy is a big bonus. So as a game designer, there are two things that I think are really important to me when I make games. And the first thing is that health and fitness is more important than weight loss. There are many, many apps out there and many, many books and things like that will help you lose weight, like MyFitnessPal or these other things. That's fine, but I'm not interested in that. I don't really care how much you weigh. I just want to know how healthy and fit you are. And the second thing that's really important for me is that I want you to get fit because it's fun, not because you feel guilty about not being fit. I want you to go outside tomorrow because you're really excited about running or about walking or these other things, not because you want to go and walk 10,000 steps or to go and lose another pound, but because it's going to be really exciting. And that's my job as a game designer, to make it really exciting. So before I get into fitness games in particular, I just want to talk about how I got into making fitness games. It was never my ambition to make games that would make you fit. In fact, if you asked my teachers at school, they probably would have found it really funny because I hated sports at school. One of the things they made us do was cross country, where you had to go and run for 3 miles. And now, 3 miles is not that far. I can probably do it in 20 minutes or something. But back then, it was incredibly painful. And now I make a game that 1.5 million runners play. But it sort of makes sense because the way that I got into gaming was through a particular type of game called alternate reality games. So these are not video games, but these are games that take place in the real world with phone calls and emails and physical artifacts and actors. I've always loved making games that cross between the digital with computers and also the real world. And one of those games, one of the early games that I made, was a game called Perplexity. And this was an alternate reality game that had these kind of puzzle cards, but when you did a puzzle, you would go and get clues that took you to websites and took you to digital puzzles. And I think there's always been a special thrill when you get people to do things in the real world, live events, that you just can't get when you're watching a TV, when you're using a computer. And so that's a strand that's kind of woven through all the games that I've made, games that mix the digital with the physical. So anyway, back to fitness games. There aren't really that many games out there that make you fit. Most games don't do anything at all. One of the favorite games that I used to play that made me sort of fit was Dance Dance Revolution. I don't know whether any of you guys have played this. It's an arcade game where this guy is being too excited. This is a game where the arrows sort of float up the screen and you have to go and hit this dance pad in time. Actually, that's not Dance Dance Revolution. That's a different game. I'm getting confused. But you have to go and hit the arrows in time. So it's kind of like dancing. And of course, you can imagine if you've got a really fast sequence of arrows zooming up, you're kind of dancing really fast and you're burning the calories. And so this is a kind of really fun game that sort of gets you fit, although in reality, the actual amount of calories you burn is really quite low. You can sort of get sweaty, but you don't really get that fit. Of course, another game that everyone really knows about is Wii Fit and Wii Sports from Nintendo. And I got, this is me playing, I think doing boxing. I was playing Wii Sports. And of course, this is Wii Fit here, where someone is getting kind of excited, sort of leaning left and right. And these are, games like these are really fun and really interactive and really novel because they involve different kinds of interactions. Instead of using a normal controller, you're using a different kind of controller. So here, she's playing a game where you're sort of skiing down a hill, and you're leaning left and right. And they're sold on the basis that if you go and get Wii Fit, then you're going to lose weight. But in our testing of Wii Fit, the most energetic exercise you could do in that game burns about as much as a fast walk. So it's a fun game, but if you actually want to go and get fit, you might as well just go outside and walk, because that's about as energetic as Wii Fit is. It's really more a game about balance than it is about getting healthy and fit. So none of these games that we looked at when we were thinking about these things really required enough exertion to contribute towards fitness. It just didn't really do anything. They were fun, but they didn't actually make you fit. And so there are also other fitness games out there, not for consoles, that we looked at. So there's lots of real-world location games out there. Some of these are quite old. So the point is that people have been making location-based games and real-world games for a long time. This is a game where you have to go to specific places in the real world in New York to go and capture territory. So obviously you have to walk around to go and get this stuff. There's another game called Cash and Seek, which was, I think, a Japanese game where basically you go and run your route and you can go and place treasure along it. So as you run faster or as you run further, you go and pick up treasure. And there's Ingress as well. Google's Ingress is a game where you have to go and walk around in the real world to go and get territory. One of the most interesting games that I thought was fun, kind of like a fitness game or sport, is this game called Seek and Spell. And so this is a bit of a mix between Scrabble and running around. So you play this game against, I think, about 4 people or 3 people. And you play this in the real world, so in the same park. And the game puts letters on the map, right? And by running over a letter, you collect that into your tray at the bottom. And if you have enough letters, then you can spell out a word, and you get points. So you can imagine you're kind of running around this park trying to go and collect all the letters before anyone else gets the letters to go and spell out words. So it's kind of like a mix between a game and a sport. It's a really cool idea. Unfortunately, not many people really played it because it's kind of quite hard to go and convince your friends to sort of go and get phones and go and get the app and all come to a place at the same time. And also, if you're running around and you've got your phone and you're looking at your phone and you're running around, that's really dangerous. You shouldn't do that. It's amazing how many game designers make that mistake. That's why with Zombies Run, it's an audio game, not looking at the phone. And you can actually see this is kind of one instance of a game where the game has put letters into locations that you can't actually really get to. So it's sort of a really cool idea, but it's sort of broken. So, there are games out there that are trying to make you fit, but you probably haven't really heard of many of them, and the ones that you have heard of them aren't really good at making you get fit. So, as a game designer, I don't want to just look at video games, I want to go and look at all games and all sports. And I think there's actually much more that we can learn from sports that millions or billions of people play than from video games. And so I started thinking about, okay, what about the games and the sports that have got me fit in the past? What are good and bad things about that? So one of the sports I used to play was football. And so in the honor of the Women's World Cup, this is women playing football, not guys. Okay, so when you think about football, I think everyone realizes that in order to be a good football player, you need to be able to run fast. You need to be able to have good balance. And so this is really good at building up fitness. The bad part of football is that you can only play football if you've got a team. In fact, you need two teams, really. One on your side and one on the other side. So you can't play football. It's kind of difficult to play football every day. Maybe you could play it every week. And you can't play football everywhere. You have to play it on a pitch, right? Unlike, a mobile phone game, which you can play anywhere at any time. So football is it's a really sort of competitive game, and it has a real sense of mastery. You can get good at football, and you can get excited about it. It's a social game, but it's actually quite hard to get into. Another team game that I used to play a lot that is kind of even more exciting is Paintball, right? So Paintball is another game where you've got kind of two teams playing against each other, and I don't know if you've ever played it, but if you think that football is energetic, when someone is shooting stuff at you that is going to hurt you, then you will sprint across the field, and you'll duck and you'll dive and you'll squat behind things, and it is extremely good at getting you to kind of move your muscles. It really taps into your fight or flight instincts when you're playing a game like this. You don't want to die. You're not going to die if you play this, but you don't want to get hurt. And so the issue, of course, of paintball is it's even harder to play than football because it's expensive, you need all this gear, you need to go to a special place, you need to get a team together. It's not really something you can play as part of a kind of fitness activity. Although you can imagine that if you could play it every day, it probably would be really good, especially if you had virtual reality or augmented reality or HoloLens or something like that. But we don't have that yet, but maybe one day. This isn't really a sport, but this is just a gym, but I use it as contrast. Okay? A gym, when you go there, it's really boring. But it's really convenient and it's really easy because there are lots of gyms out there, and usually there's one that's near you. And even though gyms can be expensive, they're a commitment device. And what I mean by that is that when you sign up to a gym membership for 20, 30, 40 euros a month, you kind of think, well, I really got to go, otherwise I'm wasting my money. And so that's actually kind of an interesting way of using money to get people to come along to an event. But I think that gyms are kind of manifestly joyless and depressing, and so that's something that I kind of wanted to avoid. Golf and mini golf, kind of good but expensive and just about walking. Walking, also good but kind of takes too long, and it really requires you to be in a place that is kind of nice to walk around. I mean, in London, it's lovely to walk. In places in America, it's horrible to walk. It's probably not something that we can really realistically expect people to do. Home workouts. Kind of boring, makes a room smelly, not something that, I don't have a living room this big, so I don't know. It's not really something that you can get people to do. And the last one I want to talk about, though, is rowing. I used to do rowing at university, and this is something where it's an interesting kind of sport, it's an interesting kind of game, because you have a team where you all need to be there to make the boat go. Okay, so on a rowing boat, you need 8 people. If there's only 7 people, the boat doesn't go. You need 8 people there, and so it has a lot of peer pressure in it. And if you've ever played World of Warcraft, or a massively multiplayer game like that, and you get really good at World of Warcraft, you'll get into team raids that require 20 people or 30 people or 40 people. And in order to beat the raid, to beat the boss, you need to have all 40 people there. If one person is missing, you're going to lose. And so that's really good kind of peer pressure to get everyone there. And the same thing applies to team sports, particularly like rowing. If you don't turn up, the whole thing doesn't work and everyone will hate you. So that's kind of a pretty good way of setting up a sort of commitment device to sort of get people to get fit. So from all of these things, when I think of a really good sport or game that would get me fit, if I picked out all the things that I'd like from all these things, there's a kind of a list of features that I want. And the first thing is, I want something that's fun. In other words, I want something that I look forward to, something that isn't boring, something that I'm really excited about. My perfect thing, it would have a good solo experience and a good team experience. Solo because I want to be able to play it when my team is not around, but a team experience so I can get a good social interaction out of it when I'm playing. I want something that's cheap. I don't think it's good if we have sports or games that are only accessible to people who have lots of money, ideally. I want something that's playable anywhere, okay? So games like golf or like cricket or like rowing, these are really good if you happen to live next to a river or next to the right place, but I want something that, if as a game designer, I would like to make something that people could play anywhere. I want something that's going to have longevity. In other words, not something like Wii Sports or Wii Fit, where you play it for 1 week and you put it into the closet. I want something that you'll be able to play for months or years and get really good at it. I want something that have real exertion. Not something where you just kind of walk around, but something where you get sweaty and where you build up your muscles. I want something that's safe, obviously, not running around looking at a phone. And I want something, personally for me, that involves role play. I love the idea that when you're sort of working out, you feel like, you're a superhero, or you feel like you're escaping from zombies, that sort of thing. That's the sort of thing that kind of motivates me. Some people not interested in that, but I think that's the sort of thing that I want to do. And finally, as a game designer, I want to do something that works. So not something that's kind of experimental, that might not work. I want to do something that actually works, that actually can provably get people fit. For most people, so not just for like a few people, and something that is financially sustainable. And this is the kind of third thing, is probably the hardest thing to do, because it's quite easy to make a game that costs a lot of money that you can give away to people, but can you make a game that people will actually pay for and can sustain itself even after your grant funding, your Kickstarter, all this sort of thing runs out? And that's really hard, and to be honest, we've only really done it with one game. We've made like 5 games, but we've only had one game that can really do that. And so let's talk about the games that we've made quickly. So, Zombies Run, we came up with this about 3.5 years ago. And the idea behind this game was to make a game that basically made running more fun. And so in this game, I mentioned, you've got your phone. We're using your phone as kind of like a really big wearable. It's got GPS. It can play music. It can play sounds, and use that to kind of turn your world into one where you need to run to survive. And so we launched this back in 2012 on iPhone and Android. And it was just amazing to see the kind of reception that people had. As soon as people heard the name, they immediately wanted to go and find out more and to go and buy it. And so in the game, when you're playing it, you'll hear messages from your operator saying, okay, runner 5, we've spotted a lost child out in the wilderness, about 20 minutes run away. If you don't get there, it's going to die. Also, we need you to collect supplies as you go along. So as you run, you will hear these transmissions in between your own music, and you'll also collect supplies like ammo or batteries or food that you can use to build up your base, which you can see at the end, and that unlocks more abilities. So we have this kind of nice virtuous circle where we're making the act of your running more fun, but also after your run, you get these rewards that you can use to go and build up your base. And so some people really like the story. They really like what you hear as you run. And some people, they like the story, but they prefer the base building more because they like things like SimCity or Clash of Clans. And so we're trying to balance those two ends to make sure that there's something for both people. But the idea with Zombies Run, though, is you can play it anywhere. I mentioned I wanted to have a game that could be playable anywhere. So you can play it on a treadmill, or you can play it outside. It's not location specific. A lot of people say, oh, do you have to play it in America or in London? Well, we don't do that because we let you run anywhere. A lot of game designers want to make location-based games where you have to run to specific points in the world. Everyone always asks us to do that. They go and say, wouldn't it be really cool if we told you there are zombies on your right, you need to run left to avoid them? And that does sound really cool until you realize I might be running down a road and there's a car over here and I tell you to run into the car, right? So we're kind of reaching the limits of what technology can do. Of course, maybe in the future, the game will know exactly where you are and it'll know that there's something dangerous over here. But trust me, GPS isn't quite that good enough yet. So instead in this game, you can run anywhere. This is a test run that I did in my hometown. I ran around the lake, and so you can kind of see my route there. And we also have a sort of online service here where you can go and see all your runs and see how far you've run. But we've made other games other than running. This is a game called The Walk, and this is a game that we made with the NHS and the Department of Health in the UK. So this is the first government-funded fitness game made in the UK, maybe in the world. And so this is meant to be even more accessible than Zombies Run. Because in Zombies Run, we kind of want you to run, but a lot of people, they just don't want to run. Maybe they're not fit enough, they can't run for 20 minutes. And so in this game, you have to walk. And we track your walking using the internal pedometer on the phone. And we track it not just when you have the app open, but we track it all the time. And as you walk more, you walk through this landscape. And in the game, the idea is that there's been an explosion, a terrorist attack in Edinburgh, and you need to go in Inverness, and you need to walk 500 miles or 1,000 miles from Inverness all the way down to London. So in the real world, you have to go and walk this distance in order to finish this game. And as you walk that distance, you go and follow this path, and you go and complete episodes and unlock the story. And so about 100,000, 150,000 people have got this game. So this makes it, the second most popular fitness game out there, although still kind of quite a long second to Zombies Run. Another game that I mentioned we made is Superhero Workout. And so this is our take on the 7-minute workout. And so in this game, the idea is that we tell you to go and you become a kind of superhero like Iron Man, basically, and you have to go and perform, push-ups and squats and jumping jacks that correspond to actions in the story. So when you're kind of punching, you are, firing laser blasts at aliens. And the funny thing about this game is that it's become really popular in schools. I really didn't imagine this. Schools put this game up on a projector, and they get like 30 kids basically doing jumping jacks and push-ups and things like that, because it's just way more interesting than running around, or doing kind of gymnastics. And the final game is Step by Step, which I mentioned before, which is this much more accessible game for kids and for families about walking, where you can go and collect all these animals. So these are just games that we made literally in the last 2 or 3 years. We're making games very quickly, we're experimenting with a lot of different things, We're trying to figure out how to go and make games even more popular than Zombies Run. And you'll notice that there are a few things these games don't actually include yet. One of those things is they don't actually have multiplayer. All of our games are single player at the moment. And the reason for that is it's really difficult to balance a multiplayer game. If you're making a competitive game, then that's, a lot of the most popular games out there, like Counter-Strike and like World of Warcraft and all these other things, are competitive games. And a lot of people are motivated by competition, right? And a lot of sports apps, like Nike Plus, like Strava, are about competition. They're about running faster or running further than your friends. In fact, that's a whole thing about Nike's advertising. Can you beat your friends? But if you're starting out and you've got a leaderboard of all your friends, and this person's run 20 kilometers, 19 kilometers, 15 kilometers, 12 kilometers, and you're at the bottom, 2 kilometers, that's not motivating. That's just really depressing, right? I used to use a Fitbit, and the Fitbit app would have a competition, have multiplayer kind of, with a leaderboard of how many steps people have walked during the week. And there's always one guy who was at the top. He always had the most steps because he worked in a hospital and he had to walk, around all the time. And I was always number 2 because I used to run a lot. And then there are people at the bottom who are Americans, so they never walked anywhere. And that kind of competition, it doesn't really work very well. So I think that if we were going to do multiplayer competition, we'd have to figure out a really good way of benchmarking or handicapping players against each other. And to do that, you need to have a large number of players. And so that's something that we're looking at, but it's quite difficult. You need a lot of players to do it. The second thing that we still haven't done yet is genuine location sensitivity. So Zombies Run, you can play it anywhere. All of our games, you can play them anywhere, which is good because it means that they're accessible to everyone in the world. But it's bad because I think it would be really cool if you were running around this garden here and there were actually zombies coming from the road or from the train tracks and you had to go navigate the environment. I think that would be a really fun game, and that's something that we do want to do in the future, but the level of data that we require in terms of maps and in terms of your precise location is something that we don't quite have yet, but I think we will do in the next 3 to 5 years. But the maps aren't quite good enough, and GPS is still about 5 meters, 3 meters accuracy, and we really need it to be 1 meter or below 1 meter accuracy, and it's not there yet. And the third thing is wearables. So everyone's really excited about the Apple Watch. The problem is, and about the Pebble and about all these other things, the problem is they're still kind of too expensive, and the SDK, the software development kit, is still too locked down. So it's not something that we can really, it's worthwhile spending a lot of time on. Last year we made a version of Zombies Run for Google Glass. Google invited us to make a sort of augmented reality version of Zombies Run. And it was a complete waste of time because no one actually has Google Glass and you can't sell apps on Google Glass. So I said before, I want to make a game that's financially sustainable. If someone gives me £1 million, I'm happy to make a game on any platform. But as a company, we need to go and sell products. And if we can't sell an app on the Apple Watch on Google Glass, then there's no point. We'll just wait until we can do something that is financially sustainable. And so a big part of any game is doing it at the right time. That's even more important for fitness games where it's so dependent on technology. We have to make sure we go and release this stuff when people have the right technology. So I just want to finish up by saying that it was never really kind of my ambition to go and make fitness games. It wasn't even what I started out doing. And it turns out that making fitness games, they're really hard to make, but they also change people's lives in a way that other games won't. They actually make people healthier. We've had people emailing us, thousands of people email us, telling us how important our games have been, and some people have told us that our games have actually saved their lives. And so we get people tweeting at us. So this is a tweet recently. Today I ran for 25 minutes without stopping. On March, I could barely do the 15-second drills. Love you all and thank you. And it's really nice to know that you made a game that did this. Another one, someone finished season 2 of Zombies Run. They ran 470 kilometers. You know, that's pretty good. Someone saying, I ran Zombies Run for the first time today. I actually stayed moving for the whole 30 minutes instead of giving up 15 minutes into the run, which I think is something that a lot of people recognize. It's like the best running app out there. I didn't like running until I discovered Zombies Run. And probably the best one, excluding my wife and daughter, I think Zombies Run might be the best thing that ever happened to me. So that's a pretty good third for us to come into. So it's tough to make these games, it's hard to make money from them, but if you do, then you get people saying nice things that are important. So thank you very much.